Welcome everyone to Powered by TAG Network Midlands. Today I am joined by Bal Atwal. Bal is the commercial lawyer for West Midlands Police. He's also a Law Society Council member. He is the co-chair of Birmingham Solicitors Group and many other things. He's also an award winner. Welcome, Bal.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for having me.
That's okay. That's all good. So for those in the audience who don't know who you are, could you tell them a little bit about what it is you do?
Absolutely. So in my day job, I'm a commercial lawyer for West Midlands Police. For anyone that doesn't know, West Midlands Police is the second largest police force in the country, and my work is essentially split between commercial property and commercial law. When I talk about commercial property, that includes things like leases, licenses, rights of way in relation to police property, for example, police stations, training centres, and offices for staff. And then commercial law, that can cover basically anything contractual. So anything from a collaboration agreement between West Midlands Police and other police forces across the country, to media agreements with some of the stuff you might see on TV involving West Midlands Police, to even football agreements, because West Midlands Police needs to have a police presence at certain sporting events in the region. So that's my day job. It is not a traditional kind of role that I'm in, but I did have a traditional route into law. So I trained and qualified in private practice in Birmingham, and then I decided to make the transition into in-house and public sector. So that's the day job in a nutshell. Outside of the day job, I'm involved in several networking organisations. So in no particular order, firstly, Birmingham Solicitors Group, which is a professional networking group and community for junior lawyers across Birmingham and West Midlands. And when I say junior lawyers, that actually means anyone up from student all the way up until a qualified solicitor. So that covers apprentices, paralegals, new NQs, NQs that are up to 6 years qualified. So we cover quite a wide remit. The Birmingham Solicitors Group, or the BSG as we like to call it, is one of the most active and largest JLD groups of its kind across the country. The only, I'd say, group that probably rivals us is London, and that's because they have more lawyers per square mile. And it's grown at a very good rate, and I'm super kind of proud of that organisation and what it can achieve in the future as well. So that's on the regional scene, and then on the national scene, I was elected as a Law Society Council member. For any lawyers or even non-lawyers listening to this, the Law Society is the independent voice for solicitors. They hold events, they do accreditations, they lobby even with government at the national level, and I represent junior lawyers on their council. So I was elected to represent junior qualified lawyers across the country. And in the same respect as we vote for MPs that represent us in the House of Commons, I represent junior lawyers at the Law Society Council. And I think that's all of my roles in a nutshell. I do have previous involvement with TAG, and I will be having future involvement with TAG as well. But yeah, we'll say watch this space for that.
Just a couple of things there, just a couple of small things. So it sounds like you are incredibly busy. So how do you make time for all of these different things? Like how is your work-life balance?
I think my work-life balance, it has shifted since COVID and the pandemic. I used to work for international and global law firms where it was expected that you work late days, evenings, weekends. And then during the pandemic, I made that switch to in-house and public sector life, which is the complete opposite. You know, you're doing a 9 to 5 as opposed to an 8 to 8. So in terms of kind of my day job, I've transitioned to a role which gives me a work-life balance. So that has definitely helped. And then I think even if I was still in a traditional private practice role in an international global law firm, I was still always involved in things. And I think that's kind of been drilled into me very early on. So even when I was in school, I was playing rugby 2-3 times a week. I was in school council. I just knew that if I wanted to make a change and impact whatever level I was, I could only do that by getting involved in other things. So all these additional things give me kind of energy and give me joy. So I always say to people, just do things that you're passionate about, because it doesn't feel like a burden on your life or your career.
And was going into law something you always wanted to do? Was that the career path you set out for at the beginning?
Absolutely. I was a very kind of nerdy student into all the kind of traditional topics like English, history, and that kind of lent itself well into having a legal career. So when I kind of put everything I was good at in school, that was one of the most kind of natural choices for me.
Yeah, it sounds like you've found your calling early on and followed it through, and it's taken you to some amazing places. So you mentioned that working with West Midlands Police means that you're involved in lots of different aspects of law and commercial law that people might not necessarily expect. How do you find the difference between being in a private practice and being with West Midlands Police? What kind of differences have you noticed?
Oh, that's a very good question. So in my last two organizations, we had a massive national and international reach. But in the region, we would only have, say, maybe max 100, 200 people in the actual Birmingham region. Now, in terms of our reach, we literally only operate in West Midlands. So we definitely don't have an international reach, although there are international elements to my role, and we don't have the same national reach as a private practice law firm would have. But having said that, we are a massive organization. We have, I'd say, between 13 to 15,000 employees. So considering I've come from one of the largest law firms on the planet, at the same time, it doesn't feel like I've moved to a smaller organization. Where we're massive in this region, but we're not massive internationally. So there's an interesting kind of dynamic there. I think it's definitely helped that I've been in larger organizations, because I understand the need for building a profile internally. And I think that's massive for kind of anyone in any size organization, in any kind of professional background. So that's been super interesting. And then kind of delving deeper into legal practice, chargeable hours and bills. That's something that you don't traditionally have in-house, and especially public sector as well. A private practice law firm is literally no different to, I don't know, like a supermarket or a butcher's, where they provide a service for a fee. And if you kind of break it down, then you understand that a private practice law firm is a business. But if you join a legal function within a public sector organization, we're not a profit-making business. So for the police, our service is policing, and that's the main service that we provide. So the lawyers are not probably the important ones in the organization. In a law firm, they absolutely are the most important people there. So there's been an interesting psychological shift, which has been quite nice and been quite humbling as well, because it feels like I'm part of something way more important. So yeah, so there's lots to unpack there in terms of culture, size of the organization, and I think impact is huge as well. So working for a police force, everything is catered towards your local community engagement, how to improve the environment that you're in. A law firm, the focus is providing the best legal service to your clients. Those clients could be anywhere. Those areas of law could be very technical and very niche. So there's not so much a focus on the kind of local community. So there's lots and lots that differ and change between the two. But I think I've been able to pick up all those transferable skills from my private practice career and stick them into the public sector.
Yeah, it must be really rewarding seeing that you're part of a wider ecosystem that's supporting your community more so now. So yeah, that's really great to hear. So there's one thing you said at the start there about building your profile internally and how important that is when you start out your legal career. Did you have a solid strategy for that when you started out, or did you have to kind of feel your way and figure it out as you go along?
I think early on you don't have a strategy. You're thrown into an environment. For me, that kind of, well, I guess it started before my professional career. It started at university, because So I went to University of Birmingham, a very large university, a very large law degree, where I think still now you have thousands of students every single year. So there was lots of opportunities, but at the same time, I was aware that there was lots of competition, and there was also lots to get involved in and groups to be involved in. And if you want to impact change, you need to be part of certain groups, organizations at university. Those are societies. So I guess I picked up the skill set and the knowledge there. And then as I went through the process of university, I kind of linked towards my professional career to say, how can I replicate this as a trainee solicitor, as a solicitor, and then as a more kind of senior professional as you go along. So it's been a gradual process, to be honest, and I'm super grateful to kind of have that very early on, and exercise that skill set in social media, PR, public speaking super early as a student, because we don't realize at the time, but when you're a student, all of those opportunities are safe spaces. You can do things, make a mess of it, get things wrong. It's not going to impact your job. You're not going to lose a client, anything like that. So whenever I speak to students now, I say, put your hand up in every seminar, every single lecture, make the most of every single opportunity, because those are the safe spaces. And as you kind of get up through your kind of academic and professional career, you'll have perfected those skills.
Yeah, I think making yourself visible, even in lectures, it can make such a difference to being memorable, can't it? And the things you have to say and showing the value that you can offer. That's super interesting. So you mentioned as well social media there. Now, it feels like the legal profession is starting to open up a little bit now in terms of what they're posting on social media and how they're networking with their clients, essentially. What kind of changes have you noticed with what you do?
Ooh, so many changes, especially for legal. So I would say there is a distinct difference kind of before the pandemic and after the pandemic. I think the pandemic allowed everyone to have that freedom to really show who they are to the world, because everyone was going through that exact same experience. So that kind of, it was a great equalizer in the same respect, I think. And I guess the main changes I'm seeing now are that people are more vocal to put themselves out there as individuals as opposed to lawyers. And I think that's across most professional services now. And then with the advancement of technology, so the rise of Instagram, TikTok, somewhat LinkedIn and Twitter within the legal sphere, each one of them has grown substantially. And the next year or two, we'll probably see new social media platforms as well. So I guess people have the confidence to be themselves. People have utilized new forms of social media. People have actually connected the dots between their day job and social media. So whether that's you want to win clients, whether you want people to attend your events, whether you need to get more people applying for your firm, it's unbelievable how much potential there is in a good use of social media. And then a massive thing is about generation gap as well. I think historically law firms may not have had people of a certain generation when it comes to putting out content or doing the kind of graduate recruitment. But then if you have kind of the more tech savvy generation or people involved with that, then you can link them up very, very well and at very little cost as well. So yeah, there's a rise in confidence, there's a rise in use of social media, new media platforms, and people actually monetizing that as well for themselves and for firms.
Yeah, it's really great to see everything opening up a little bit now and being able to learn a bit more about what goes on behind the scenes. So say I am a law student, I've just graduated and I want to get my profile out there. What are your top tips for someone to help build their personal brand?
Oh, good. So I'd say firstly, be on the platforms that are most apparent to whatever area of law or whatever you're passionate about. But between the two of us, we know there are certain platforms that lend itself well to certain professions or areas of professions that you want to get into. So be on the platforms where your profession is live and happening, basically. Two, don't be afraid to share your interests or passions, but make sure that those align with the kind of morals and values of the places that you want to apply for and the kind of profession that you want to go into. And three, I think don't be afraid to connect and make conversations, whether that's you commenting on posts, whether it's you reaching out to people, whether you want to just create kind of discussion and debate around a topic. It's just so open now, and to think about the time when I was a student, these avenues just didn't exist, and now you can literally talk to anyone on any platform anywhere across the world, and it literally is as simple as that.
About connecting and being able to reach out to people whose careers that you might find inspirational to get advice. How would you recommend someone look for a mentor?
So I think mentors can happen both in a formal process and an informal process. So the formal way would be through your organization, whether, I don't know, you have a job somewhere and they have a mentoring scheme, whether you're part of a, the typical example is a law school and your kind of careers consultant would kind of deal with that. Or if you're part of a networking organization, they could potentially put that on for you. The informal way, and I think the informal way is probably the most natural, is if you kind of attend networking events or you reach out to people online that are willing to do that, then you form that connection and bond there, and that kind of grows informally. And I think it's quite good, the informal way, because it doesn't feel forced and it doesn't feel like an obligation. But at the same time, not everyone will have the resources or the time to like go to physical events and see people and meet people on a regular basis. So that's why it's important to have the kind of formal mentoring schemes in place, whether it's at your law school, networking events, your place of work.
Yeah, and have you had any mentors in your career, and how did you find them?
Absolutely. So I've had a lot of mentors, more so in the informal sense. I've had formal mentors as well, where it's, a formal mentoring scheme where you both meet up regularly, check in and things like that. But if you kind of break it down to, what a mentor is, someone that you can kind of trust in, confide in, ask for help, they give you guidance. I think I've had it all the way since kind of school, sixth form, university, my first law firm, second law firm, and even now. And it doesn't have to be people that you constantly see every week religiously. It's people that you can touch base with, just get a few ideas from, will kind of lead you in the right direction, will positively criticize you. So yeah, I've had loads, and that ranges from being in school playing rugby and my kind of rugby coaches kind of telling me what to do and not do both on the pitch and outside of the pitch, to teachers when it came to like A levels and GCSEs, giving you those hints and tips about your future life. And then even as a lawyer, when I was a trainee, every 6 months you kind of move a department, and the head of that department or the supervising solicitor would always give you kind of nuggets of kind of legal support and then kind of professional support in your kind of future career as well. And it's exactly the same now as well. I have colleagues and clients that I confide in as well, and can just bounce ideas off. And that's why it's super important to be part of groups inside of work and outside of work as well, because everyone brings their gems and nuggets of knowledge that you probably were never aware of before. That's why TAG is so interesting and amazing, because people have so many different areas of expertise, and you would never have those conversations or critiques before because you're never exposed to that before.
Yeah. Do you find do your mentors generally come from the legal profession, or do you have mentors from other career avenues as well?
So I'd say informally, they would naturally have come from the legal sphere. So I guess I speak to a lot of peers, so there's almost like side-to-side mentoring where you kind of touch base and you think, is this law firm doing things right, or is this what I should be doing? Where should I be in this stage of my career? So there's a lot of kind of peer-to-peer networking, or networking and mentoring. And then I have had formal non-legal mentors as well, and I think that is super interesting as well, because they challenge you, because they're not from your profession and you need to break down simple concepts to you, but it's not apparent to people outside of the profession. And that's really interesting because it really gets you to think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and if there is actually any benefit to what you're doing as well. So there's tons of benefits from the kind of peer-to-peer mentoring and then outside of your profession mentoring as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes you can be so close to a subject, can't you, that you don't necessarily get the wider context. But if you speak to someone that has nothing to do with what you're doing, they can give you a fresh perspective on it. It can be revolutionary, can't it? Okay, so what tips do you have for someone that is looking for a mentor?
Okay, tips for wanting a mentor. I'd say put yourself out there and make it be known that you do want a mentor. They won't just come to you basically, but you need to, whether it's you have a conversation with people at a networking event or within your organization. And like I said, the kind of the informal mentors, if you have conversations with people and people are aware that you want to learn and develop, then people will be open to have those conversations with you. But if you don't initiate that conversation first, then they will just never know that you want to progress and develop in many different ways. So be open, have conversations, definitely join organizations, whether it's in your organization or outside your organization, because those are the distinct routes to get those formal mentoring opportunities. And three, I'd say be open-minded and be open to critique. And I even have to say this to myself as well, because I've had conversations with mentors in the past. And even if your career is going well and successful, your ego kind of sometimes doesn't let critique come through. But all critique is always good critique, especially when people are unfamiliar with your profession, because it makes you think wider than your bubble. So yeah, so those would be my kind of main tips.
Yeah, I think those are super useful ones, and yeah, it can be hard to get valuable feedback sometimes, but it's so necessary, isn't it? Okay, so as someone that is not in the legal profession, it looks like to me on LinkedIn that you guys are at a million events constantly. There's always a ball, there's always a charity event, there's always a networking thing going on. How important is networking in the legal profession, and how has it helped you build your profile?
So networking is really important, but it depends what you want to get out of it. So I can only talk from my perspective, and I think people use networking for many different reasons, whether it's you just want to have something to look forward to every week or every month. And that, again, that was what I really enjoyed when I was a trainee. Working in the legal profession can be difficult, but if you have things to look forward to on a regular basis, that makes life way more easier. There is the kind of upskilling element. I've worked at really big law firms, and even I know they can only give you so much in terms of skills. So if you really want to upskill yourself in other areas, whether it's public speaking, article writing, being a board member, being a committee member, those external opportunities and networking is the way to do it. The traditional kind of way of networking, and from what I understand from most lawyers in private practice anyway, is to win clients. And again, that's another reason why people network as well. And again, that's apparent for outside the legal profession also. I just think it offers so many benefits and positives and opportunities that you are unaware of, that it kind of outweighs any kind of negatives. And if you want to talk about negatives of networking, the only things I could probably think of are probably time. And to be honest, I was going to say cost, but the reality is a majority of kind of networking events, a lot of them can be free as well. So the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. And there are just so many opportunities in your professional career, whether it's just building your network, whether it's winning new clients, whether it's knowing about an organization which you could potentially work at one day, upskilling, and a whole lot more. The amount of times I've had conversations with people that have led on to other things that I couldn't even imagine at the time, it's unreal.
Yeah, you never know where things are going to go, do you? Okay, so the legal profession is, I imagine, like quite stressful, and you've got a lot of responsibility weighing on your shoulders with a lot of things. What do you do to switch off? How do you manage with the stress of difficult parts of your job?
That's a really good question, and it's always an ongoing one because I think anyone in any part of their career, they aspire to a higher level, and hence what comes with that is more stress. So you're going through this kind of cycle of more stress and trying to deal with it. So my stress levels now will be different to my stress levels in 2-3 months and then 2-3 years. So how do we kind of combat the ongoing increase in stress? I think there's lots of things. The basic things that kind of anyone can do is just looking after things like your sleep, your diet, the food you eat, and the amount of exercise you get. And to be honest, if you have a good balance of all those three things, I think your stress levels would be fairly good. Um, Obviously, stress can impact all three of those things. So, what else can you do to combat that? Um, Networking and support groups, absolutely. Um, Having a group of people around you and knowing that they're going under the same or similar situations and understanding how they've coped with it is a massive, massive support. And again, this doesn't just apply to the legal profession, it could apply to any kind of situation or issue in life. Having that support network is absolutely huge because it makes you feel like you're not the only person in the world that's suffering. And when bad things happen to anyone, your mind automatically thinks, why me? And if you can go to that mindset where it's like, well, everyone has been through it, then it makes things a lot better for you. So we've gone through all the basic things. We've gone through networking, and I think the pandemic for me, the ability to work from home and have that kind of flexibility and control over where I can physically be, I think that's quite powerful and uplifting. I'm still of that generation where you'd have to go into the office 5 days a week, graft, early morning, late nights, and it's absolutely unbelievable even now to think that I could just do that, but at home now, or to be honest, anywhere with a desk and an internet connection. I think that's definitely powerful, and especially for lawyers anyway, that has definitely helped in the conversation around kind of positive mental health.
Yeah. Yeah, having a support network must be so valuable for what you do. Absolutely. So, what do you do to switch off?
Ooh, ironically, someone I actually mentor asked me this question because a lot of our conversations were very kind of traditional and formal about kind of interviews, law firms, the whole system and process. And then he turned around and asked me, he's like, what else do you do outside of work? And it made me think, there's lots of stuff out there. Like, I used to play a lot of rugby growing up. So sport and exercise has been massive for me, whether it's, I don't know, a bit of boxing or weightlifting or even running. I used to run during the pandemic. Exercise is amazing. And I think it's probably one of the biggest ones to help kind of switch off. Um, I occasionally I'm a gamer as well, so that's really kind of puts you in a different mindset altogether. And it's just about having hobbies outside of work. During the pandemic, I really got back into reading as well, just reading for leisure, not reading kind of articles and kind of case updates. So yeah, I think having healthy, positive hobbies and outlets outside of your day job is absolutely fundamental because it just builds you as a person and it gives you things to talk about outside of your kind of day-to-day work. So I have lots of things that I kind of enjoy outside of the workplace. And to be honest, if you can link them up to your day job and your hobbies, then you've hit a perfect kind of sweet spot there. But yeah, I have lots of kind of interests and hobbies outside of the workplace. So I say, yeah, exercise, gaming as well sometimes. Yeah.
And what sort of games are you playing?
Traditional. When I was growing up, I was into kind of football games. And now as I've grown up, it's just literally just action adventure. So like your Assassin's Creed, and even that. So switching this onto a more kind of business and kind of legal element, the rise of kind of gaming as an industry, and in the future that will be a massive industry as well. So if you want to talk about tech, if you want to talk about data protection, you want to talk about VR, there's all sorts of connectivity there as well. And it's interesting to be involved with something from a professional and a personal level as well, because obviously I know a lot of lawyers that are working on kind of gaming legal elements and kind of gaming companies as well. So that's really interesting to see how that develops as well.
Yeah, it must be absolutely huge at the minute, the amount of sort of with like augmented reality and all that kind of stuff coming in, and sort of the legalities behind all that, it must be huge changes that everyone has to deal with. Yeah, cool. Okay, so I've got 3 questions that I'm asking everybody at the end of their interview. So first of all, what's one piece of advice you wish you would have had at the start of your career?
That's a very, very good good question. I would say make the most out of every single opportunity. And that literally covers anything from being in a lecture, being in a seminar room, saying yes to that volunteering opportunity, saying yes to that, I don't know, that part-time job abroad. Just make the most of every single opportunity.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice way to live, isn't it? Great. Okay. Second question: what is one book, talk, or podcast you would recommend?
Oh, I'm gonna say 2. So in terms of podcasts, there is a very funny podcast called Flagrant 2, which is done by a few comedians in America. So that one is, if you want to switch off, definitely one to listen to. And then a book I'm reading now currently is by Gary Vee called Crushing It, and it's all about kind of social media, personal branding, how to make an impact, and literally covers things like how to use Instagram, YouTube, and other social media formats. So, you know, those are 2 media outlets I'd recommend currently.
Okay, great. And who is one person who's really inspired you in your career?
Oh, that's a really good question as well. I think there's been lots of people actually. If I had to put it down to one person, I'm trying to think of who was there when I first kind of wanted to say yes to a legal career. And I'd probably say my mum, because she was just so hardworking, and I put like 2 and 2 together. I was like, well, if I'm hardworking and put it towards this, then I can do that. So I'd say my mum.
That's very sweet. Most people have said their parents, actually. It's really interesting what people have said, but yeah, most people have said their parents. Okay, great. If the people in the audience would like to find out more about who you are and what you do, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter.
Brilliant. Great. Okay, thank you so much, Bal. Yeah, you've given us so much to think about today. Thanks for joining us.